Add a personal touch to celebrations. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to paint and decoupage a champagne bottle that'll wow your friends and family. And it's easier than you think. Let's get started. All right, the first step is we want to clean off our champagne bottle with some rubbing alcohol because we want to make sure it's really clean before we start painting. If it's not clean and it has a little bit of like oils from our fingers on it, then the paint won't stick properly on it, so we want to just clean it off. All right, the next step is we want to cover the label with some masking tape so it makes it much easier to paint. Now the trick here is it's really sticky off the bat, and when we peel it off, we don't want to peel that label along with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on my sweatshirt here and then just kind of pull it off once or twice just to remove a little bit of that stickiness so it's easier to peel off in the last step. Now I'm going to show you another trick to apply this masking tape without having to measure too much. So this one is about roughly the width of this label, but it's a little bit shorter, and that's okay. So I'm just going to align up the top portion to make sure that's covered. Just like that. So you can see that there's a part on this side and this side that is not covered, but that is okay. And then we're going to apply the side portion of it. And now for the second piece along the edge, I'm just gonna line up the top, and then I'm just gonna make sure it's nice and straight along the sides. And then the bottom is not gonna go all the way to the bottom, and that's okay. And then I'm gonna apply the side one on this side. And then in the last one, I'm gonna show you here the trick. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then it's gonna go all the way to the other side. Now this side is gonna be a little bit longer, and we want it to go right to the edge. And to do that, all you're gonna do is you're just gonna fold it back and make a fold where the label ends. And that way we don't have to measure any of these pieces. I know sometimes measuring can take a little bit, take a while, so this makes it much easier. And then you're just gonna lift off that piece of tape, and then you're just gonna cut along that fold. And then you're just going to stick it down. And now your label is perfectly covered, and it's gonna be much easier to paint. So I'm gonna do the same step on the top label, and then we're gonna move on to the next step and paint on our bottle. So the next step is we're gonna base coat our champagne bottle with some paint. So I'm going to be using some white chalk paint for the base coat, but if you don't have chalk paint, don't go running out to the store. You can always use white acrylic paint. Now there is a difference. So chalk paint is made super thick and acrylic paint is a little bit thinner. So you're going to probably need more coats with your acrylic paint compared to the chalk paint. So I did a little test here on a plastic bottle I had, and this is the coat, one coat of chalk paint on your clear plastic bottle versus here this is one coat of your acrylic paint, so it's much more see-through. There's more brush strokes, so you'll need 3 or 4 coats even to get a really nice solid finish like our chalk paint. With the chalk paint we'll need about 2 coats, so that is the difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my wide flat brush and I'm going to dip it into my white chalk paint, and chalk paint is really nice and thick, and then we're just going to start applying it with these up and down brush strokes to get really nice even coverage. And since I use the masking tape on the labels, I'm not so worried about getting it on the labels. Another tip here is to make it easier for you to paint. Since we're not painting the top part, the neck of the bottle, I'm gonna flip it over and hold it by its neck while I'm painting. It makes it much easier to turn the bottle and paint as you go. And then we're just gonna fill this whole bottle in with that white chalk paint or acrylic paint, and then we're gonna leave it to dry before our next coat. I'm gonna share another tip with you. So while it's drying, I have placed it down on a piece of parchment paper or wax paper. The paint won't stick to it, so your bottom portion won't be ruined. All right, now it's time for the second coat of paint, and you really want to make sure that the first coat is dry to the touch. So you want it to be bone dry, not even a little bit tacky. This is what happens when you don't wait for your layer to dry completely and you try to paint over top, is that the paint actually lifts off the glass and you have to redo that part. And then for the second coat, I'm just going to basically repeat the same thing and apply my chalk paint in a top to bottom up and down strokes. It's gonna give a really smooth and even look. I'm done my second coat, and I'm just gonna leave it to dry now. So I just wanna quickly show you here the difference between having 1 coat of paint and 2. So on this champagne bottle here, I've done the 2 coats of paint, and you can see it's nice and opaque and streak free. That one there. And this champagne bottle, I've only done one coat of paint. So you can see that there's still some streaks there. It's still really opaque on one coat, but it needs another one to really cover up all those brush strokes and to make it really nice and opaque like that one. And we're going to continue on to the next part of this tutorial, which is going to be the decoupage part. But before that, we're going to take off our masking tape, and I actually want to show you because I anticipate something happening and I want to show you, if it happens to you, what to do. So as a clue, I have my paintbrush and I have my paint still on hand. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to peel back my masking tape. So I just peeled one corner of it, and then I'm just going to start peeling away. And I'm going to go really slowly because we don't want that paint to be peeled above the label or on the sides of the label. So we have nice sharp edges, which is good. We're just going to peel that away. Okay, so for the most part, the edges turned out really nice, but sometimes what happens is you'll get parts of that glass still showing because the tape didn't get completely around the edges, and that's nothing to worry about. We can fix it here. All you do is grab a smaller brush and your white paint, and then you're just going to just really slowly paint along those edges to fill them in. All right, the next step is we're gonna decoupage a napkin onto the surface of the bottle. So I found this really pretty napkin design with flowers and butterflies at my local dollar store, and I thought it looked really nice on the bottle. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take you through some tips and how-tos to get the design off your napkin in the easiest way possible, so it makes it really super easy to transfer over to your bottle. So one thing to note is that normal napkins have either 2 or 3 plies, and you don't want to apply the design with those 3 plies on your bottle. You just want the thinnest layer possible, so basically a single layer. So what I found with my napkins is that the first layer was really super easy to separate. So it was like that. Now to separate the last 2 layers though, it was really difficult. It was kind of like opening up those plastic grocery bags down in the grocery aisle. So one tip I learned from a fabulous crafting channel called Crafting with Gretchen is that you can take something sticky, and so I'm just using here my masking tape, and you just kind of stick it to the back of the tissue paper, and then you lift up. And what happens is, gently, you want to lift up gently because you don't want to tear both layers, but what it does is it tears the top layer right off, and then it makes it easy to separate the last final 2 layers. So I'm going to flip it over to show you. This is the colored side. So this is the side that we're going to look at the design, and you're going to pick out here which parts of the design you want. You don't have to spend hours cutting it exactly the outline of it. If you've painted your bottle white and you have a white background on your napkin, you can just like rough cut it. You're going to find that once we apply our gloss varnish, that white tissue paper is just going to basically like dissolve into the background. It's going to be pretty much invisible, so you don't have to worry too much about getting your cuts exact. So I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to cut this butterfly right over here, the pink one in the corner. So here we go. This is roughly cut out. However, there is a green leaf at the bottom, and when we put it against that white, you're going to be able to see that green. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to cut as close to that butterfly's bottom as I can to cut out that green leaf, but I don't have to worry about the rest of the design because when you put it against that white, and especially once we do it in the next step, you're gonna see that it just basically dissolves right in. All right, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick out some flowers and butterflies. I'm gonna cut them out, and then in the next step, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna transfer them right onto the bottle for a really pretty design. All right, the next step, once I have all my designs cut out, is I want to take a moment to plan where all those designs are going to go on my bottle. So before I start decoupaging, because what's going to happen is, let's say for example, I put it down over here and then I want to move it down here. Once the gloss varnish is on the bottle with our design, it's really hard to take off and move, and often your tissue will rip. So you want to take a moment here to plan where all of your designs are going to go. And to decoupage it to your glass bottle, I'm going to be using this gloss varnish by Decoupage because I had it on hand, but you can use any gloss varnish that you have on hand, or you can also use Mod Podge as well. So what I've done is I have poured it into my dish over here, and I'm just gonna be using my same flat brush to apply that liquid. So what I wanna do first is, for my first design, I wanna place it right over here on my bottle. So I'm gonna take a really super thin layer of this gloss varnish, and I'm gonna apply it down just where I want my design. So not over the whole bottle, but just where I want my design. And I want it to be in a really, really thin layer. We don't want it goopy and like flowing down that bottle, just like that. And then I'm gonna take my design, and I'm gonna take my time here to place it exactly where I want it. And then to seal it to the bottle without any lumps and bumps, you can take a simple piece of saran wrap and basically use that to kind of smooth it down. I find with your fingers, you can, it's such a thin piece of tissue that it's so easy to tear. And if you find the edges are lifting up a bit and you haven't got enough of that gloss varnish, you can just lift it up a bit and apply it underneath, and then use your saran wrap to polish it down like that. I just want to share a quick tip. So I tore my design by accident because I was rubbing too hard. So you can see that white below. So all I've done is I've cut out a tiny piece of that tissue in a matching color, and I'm just going to take a little bit of that gloss varnish and put it right on top of it and just place it down. And that pretty much covers it up. So don't fret if you have a little bit of a spot there that tore, you can just decoupage right on top of it. Now the final step is sealing the design over top, and we're just going to use that same gloss varnish which we used to decoupage the napkins onto the bottle. Also to mention, you have to let the previous layer of the gloss varnish dry completely before you go over top of it with this final layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some of that on my brush, and the key here is to go really super light on top of the design. So we're gonna go over the whole design with not very much, like a very light layer. You actually don't have to do the label, but just the painted portion. And you wanna go really, really lightly, very gently. And you're gonna notice that once it's dry, because it's a gloss varnish, it's going to make the colors pop even more with a nice glossy sheen. Now, if you prefer to have a different finish, you can use a matte finish too. I have a spray can variety of this a sealer, which is made by chalk paint. And if you prefer more of a matte finish, then you can use the spray on or even the brush on one for a less glossier option. So you just want to do one layer right now, and then we're going to leave that to dry. And then we're going to come back and do a second layer. And this is really just going to seal that design to the bottle. All right guys, so it's the next morning and the sealer has had a chance to dry, and I just wanted to show you what the bottle looks like once it's dry. So basically the gloss varnish, it gives it a really subtle sheen. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but it really elevates the color of the design of the flowers and the butterflies compared to when it was in the napkin form. So that's a really nice benefit. So now I'm just gonna zoom out and I'm gonna show you what it looks like all around the bottle. So you can see how I decoupaged it all the way around with those beautiful, I think they're roses and butterflies. There you go. And I quickly want to also show you another bottle I made. This one is for my brother, his girlfriend, and their cat for Christmas, so it's a surprise. But I just want to show you another option of what you can do. Now, this is not decoupage. This is using paint markers in a really easy graffiti heart pattern. Now, you don't have to have any painting skill to do this. I'm gonna have another video on this if you're interested, and I'll link it below. But I just want to show you different options of what you can do with a champagne bottle.
Need more bottle painting ideas that are simple but yet elegant? Head over to my 3 wine bottle painting ideas video for easy projects anyone can do. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, sending you lots of peace, love, and color.